In our journey through the Bible, we are looking at 1 Samuel chapter 5. Now, if you remember or familiar with 1 Samuel chapter 4, that was when Israel had a battle with the Philistines. And the battle did not go well. They lost the battle. Hophni and Phinehas, the priests in the temple who carried the Ark of the Covenant into the battle, were killed. The Ark of the Covenant was taken, it was stolen. The Philistines grabbed that. Eli heard about what had happened, and when he heard that the Philistines had captured and taken the Ark of the Covenant, he fell backwards on his chair and broke his neck, and he died. Israel had lost in the battle 30,000 people, and there was two different battles. They lost 4,000 in the first one and 30,000 in the second one. So that's what you call a real butt kicking. They just got whipped. And you would look at that and go, well, Israel lost. And yes, that particular skirmish, that particular battle did not go Israel's way. But as we're going to see here in chapter 5, just because it looks like on the surface that you have lost the battle, it does not mean you have lost the war. And it does not mean that God is still not God. You can have a lot of things not go your way. It does not change the fact that God is still God and that He's still working things out, even in the midst of what we see as defeat, what we see as loss, what we see as just total situations that we would not want to have happen, and it happens. And we look at that and feel, wow. But we always got to keep in mind that God is still God. And if we are a child of God, if we're trusting in Him, He's got our back ultimately. Even when we're going wrong, even when we're thinking wrong, even when we're doing wrong, God will still work on your behalf to move you into a place where you can enter back into fellowship with Him. And we're going to see that on today in chapter 5. All right? So with that being said, let's go ahead and get the reading in. And we'll take a listen here. 1 Samuel chapter 5. Let's take a listen.
Chapter 5. And the Philistines took the ark of God and brought it from Ebenezer unto Ashdod. When the Philistines took the ark of God, they brought it into the house of Dagon, and set it by Dagon. And when they of Ashdod arose early on the morrow, behold, Dagon was fallen upon his face to the earth before the ark of the Lord. And they took Dagon, and set him in his place again. And when they arose early on the morrow morning, behold, Dagon was fallen upon his face to the ground before the ark of the Lord. And the head of Dagon and both the palms of his hands were cut off upon the threshold. Only the stump of Dagon was left to him. Therefore neither the priests of Dagon, nor any that come into Dagon's house, tread on the threshold of Dagon in Ashdod unto this day. But the hand of the Lord was heavy upon them of Ashdod, and he destroyed them, and smote them with emerods, even Ashdod and the coast thereof. When the men of Ashdod saw that it was so, they said,
The ark of the God of Israel shall not abide with us, for his hand is sore upon us and upon Dagon our God.
They sent therefore and gathered all the lords of the Philistines unto them, and said,
What shall we do with the ark of the God of Israel?
And they answered,
Let the ark of the God of Israel be carried about unto Gath.
And they carried the ark of the God of Israel about thither. And it was so that after they had carried it about, the hand of the Lord was against the city with a very great destruction. And he smote the men of the city, both small and great, and they had emerods in their secret parts. Therefore they sent the ark of God to Ekron. And it came to pass, as the ark of God came to Ekron, that the Ekronites cried out, saying,
They have brought about the ark of the God of Israel to us, to slay us and our people.
So they sent and gathered together all the lords of the Philistines, and said,
Send away the ark of the God of Israel, and let it go again to his own place, that it slay us not and our people.
For there was a deadly destruction throughout all the city. The hand of God was very heavy there. And the men that died not were smitten with the emerods, and the cry of the city went up to heaven.
All right, here we go. So, what we're seeing here, as we had stated, in chapter 4, we saw that the Ark of the Covenant, the Ark of God, was stolen, was taken. Israel couldn't defend it. But guess what? We can't defend God. God does what? He defends himself. And even though that ark was stolen, and they're looking at it like, well, it was taken, and Eli was like, well, there's nothing we can do. Well, we won't see it this chapter, but between this chapter and next chapter, we'll see how God himself allows his ark to be where it's supposed to be. Now, I'm going to divert just for a moment and make a statement to say, ask the question, well, where's the Ark of the Covenant? Where's the Ark of God today? Right now. June 30th, 2024. God knows. Now, there's a lot of speculation. There's some speculation. I'm sure you've probably seen some of those documentaries where they said it's over down in the Ethiopian church and some of the different places. And I don't know whether it's true or not. But I do know this, that Ark of the Covenant still represents the authority and the very presence of God. And wherever it is, God knows where it is. And when it's time for it to be moved or to be discovered or to be talked about in literal aspects as to where it is, where it can be seen and observed, God is under control of that. So, a lot of people, we got all kinds of movies, Raiders of the Lost Ark, all these different, everybody's trying to find it. God knows where it is. It's not lost, not to God. Now, we may not know. Now, chapter 5 here, Israel is home. We're not looking at Israel. We're looking at the Philistines in chapter 5. But during this time in chapter 5, what is Israel doing? Israel is home licking their wounds. We got whipped. We got beat. And the ark of God has been stolen from us. Well, because we weren't strong enough to protect it. But you know what? God can protect himself. You hear people say bad things about God, and they cuss God and curse God and say, and I'm going to get you for doing it. No, leave them alone. What does the Bible say we should do for our enemies?
Pray.
Pray for them. Pray for not only your enemies, but pray for them that despitefully use you and say all manner of evil against you. So remember, ultimately, whose battle is it? It's the Lord's battle. God's fighting this battle. Oftentimes, we get so zealous, and because we love God, we want to go in and I'm going to get this fixed, and I want this, and this shouldn't be, and we all get it. We understand how we can feel, but then we get sad because all this energy and effort that we put forth, and we don't see what we were hoping to see. But the key is allow your faith not to wane. Allow your faith not to get weak or to be discouraged. God is still in control. He is still God. He has not changed. He's still the beginning. He's still the end. He's still the first. He's still the last. He's the Alpha and Omega. He's still all that he has been and all that he always will be. Now, why do we have these temporary dismisses from the presence of God, like Israel has here? Because of sin. Because of our inability to call on him and trust in him. We have these moments where we're no longer walking in the things of God, and God will remove his visible presence. But behind the scenes, he's still beating up the enemy. And that's what we see here. Let's get into this. And it says and I always say that the reason why this and is in front of this, because to understand chapter 5, you have to know what happened in the previous chapters. So we need to know. All right. So it says, and the Philistines took the ark of God. They took it. So they think, hey, their God was not strong enough to stop us from taking it. But see, God oftentimes will allow himself to go into a humbled situation where he is allowing those that are not stronger than him to have authority over him. What was the ultimate demonstration of that? Jesus. Jesus stripped himself of all of his glory, came down, put on the likeness of sinful flesh, and allowed the men of his day, the culture of his day, to mistreat him, to abuse him, to beat him, to whip on him, spit in his face, and nail him to a cross. He had the authority. He said, don't you know I could call 10,000 legions of angels? When he was talking to Peter, when Peter tried to fight the battle. Because Peter was trying to do like we do. These folks are coming here. I'm going to pull out my sword and I'm going to cut this man's head off. And Jesus told Peter, do what? Put your sword away. All right? Don't do that. All right? Good to have you, Calvin. Good to see you. We're on 1 Samuel chapter 5.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. All right. So we can see that when it comes down to God fighting the battle, oftentimes he will allow himself to enter into what we would see as a humbled situation, where you look at it and go, wow, why would you allow these people to grab you and take you and do? And God's like, it's okay. I know how to fight this battle. And so let's look at what happened. So the Philistines took the ark of God and brought it from Ebenezer to Ashdod. So they're moving it around. All right? They're handling it however they want to handle it. And keep in mind, they're handling it and moving it and controlling it, and nobody's dying. Now, we know that when it comes down to handling the ark of the Lord, the Israelites were told, if you don't handle it right, you will die. And we're going to see that a few chapters down. But these people here that have no law, they don't know God, God is not killing them for handling it. He's going to say, okay, what are you going to do with me? He's not striking them dead for that. However, keep watching. Keep checking to see what God is doing. So they're moving it, they're bringing it around, and so now they think they have the control over the things of God. But they do not. Let's keep reading. Verse 2. When the Philistines took the ark of God, they brought it into the house of Dagon and set it by Dagon. Who's Dagon? Dagon is their false god. They have a god, and so they're taking the ark of God from Israel and putting it into the house of Dagon, because they're saying, our God gave us victory over this God of the Israelites. That was the mindset of that move. But let's keep reading. Verse 3. And when they of Ashdod arose early in the morning, behold, Dagon was fallen upon his face to the earth before the ark of the Lord. Look at that. What does the Bible say? Every knee shall bow, and every mouth shall confess. So the false god, the next day when they woke up, was falling down before the ark of God. How did that happen? I don't know. I just know the power of God made that thing bow down, and it fell down. And it fell down to the earth before the ark of the Lord. See, God is still fighting the battle. Even though you would look at it and go, well, it's captured. It's being held captive. All right? But the scripture lets us know that he sets the what? The captives free. All right? We're held captive by sin, but we shall be set free. And even in the captivity, we still have power with God. And it says, and they took Dagon and set him in his place again. They went there, they saw he was knocked over, and they went and they set him back up again. Thinking, it was just something. It was a fluke. It was just something that just happened. A lot of things that God is doing, people go, well, that's just the way it is. That was just coincidence. Or that was just, Mother Nature, or whatever it is that may be happening where God is actually working, and they want to attribute it to something other than the power of God. All right? And so they I'm just going to sit it back up, no big deal. Look at verse 4. And when they arose early in the morning, the morrow morning, that means the next morning, behold, Dagon was fallen upon his face to the ground before the ark of the Lord. He's bowing down again. But let's keep reading. And the head of Dagon and both the palms of his hand were cut off upon the threshold. Only the stump of Dagon was left to him. So this time he was fallen, and what happened? He was broken. And so you got to be careful. If you fall, the scripture says, if you fall on the stone, you will be broken. But if the stone falls on you, you will be crushed. And so you have to make sure we need to fall to God, and God will break us out of ourselves. But if we don't allow ourselves to come to God, God will come to us, and he will crush us because of our resistance and our infidelity and our false worship. So it makes sense for us to come to God. Well, Dagon now has fallen a second time, but this time he was broken up. There's no fixing him back up. All right? And it's also going to, you would think that the priests and all the people that served Dagon, that they would say, well, wait a minute, this God of the Israelites, the God is whose presence is in the ark of this covenant, the ark of God, is more powerful than our God. Maybe we should find out who he is, and maybe we should worship him. You think that's what they would maybe think? You would think so, but that's not what happens. They do pick up a superstition based on it, but they don't turn to the God. Look what it says in verse 5. Therefore, neither the priests of Dagon nor any that come into Dagon's house tread upon the threshold of Dagon in Ashdod until this day. So they're saying, well, we better not walk over it, because if we walk on it, it might fall again. So they're not even putting proper evidence and proper credence. No, it's the ark of the Lord. But you say, well, maybe they don't think it's the ark of the Lord. They know it is. And their actions that we're going to read going forward proves. They know what's going on. They know that the ark of God, that was the God of the Israelites, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, is doing this. They are very much aware of it. But they still will not worship God. And that's an amazing thing when you know God is who he is and you still don't worship him. I'm still going to do my own thing. I'm going to worship what I want to worship, even though I know the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I know that the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, God the Father, Jesus Christ, the Spirit of God, is the ultimate God of gods, but I'm not going to worship him anyway. A lot of people, unfortunately, have that attitude. So look what happens. Verse 6. But the hand of the Lord was very heavy upon Ashdod, and he destroyed them. Look at this. See, God is still fighting the battle. The Israelite army could not destroy them. We saw that in chapter 4. Israel got destroyed, their people. But God is now there in the presence of that ark of God, and the people in that city are being destroyed. God is still fighting. God is always fighting sin. Right? And he destroyed them and smote them with emerods, even Ashdod and the coast thereof. So now they had this emerald, which is like a boil or a rash, and just hit them. And they were not only, some of them were dying, but then the ones that were alive were extremely uncomfortable. All right? And so now they got this disease, this plague, this upon them. And they know it's God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. How do we know that? Let's keep reading. Verse 7. And when the men of Ashdod saw that it was so, they said, the ark of the God of Israel shall not abide with us. They're going to kick it out. Why don't you begin to worship the ark? Why don't you begin to trust in the ark, of the God of the ark? Why don't you do that? Since you see how much authority and how much power. No, I want to get it out of my culture. I don't want it around me. I want to kick God out of our town. And we have a lot of people that want to just get God out. I want God out of our schools. I want God out of our businesses. I want God out of our courtrooms. I want God out of all that we do. We're going to just get rid of him. but you know he's God. I don't care. I want to get rid of it. I don't believe in serving that God. Well, that's to your own detriment. All right, so they're saying, let me read this again, verse 7. And when the men of Ashdod saw that it was so, they said, the ark of the God of Israel shall not abide with us, for his hand is sore upon us and upon Dagon, our God. So it's not only beating us up, but he's beating up what we believe in. He's proven the things that we believe in are not more powerful than the God of Israel. And what is God doing? He's proving to them. Y'all might have won the battle with the swords and with the bow and arrows and with all the things that y'all were fighting when y'all were fighting Israel, but you're not winning the fight with me. I'm Israel's God, and I will fight for them. And that's what he's doing now, behind the scenes. Israel doesn't know anything about this. What is Israel doing? They're at home, licking their wounds, thinking about how bad they got beat. And while they're thinking about how bad they got beat, the Spirit of God is still fighting and beating up the enemies that beat them up. And God does the same thing for you and me. We can have some situations where it look like I lost that battle, but God is still fighting another battle, a battle that you don't see for you, that you could not win. And so we can't be discouraged. We always got to just have faith in God, that he is making it right. God is not going to look back and go, oh, I wish I could have done better with this particular circumstance. God's not going to have that conversation. Everything is going to fall proper the way God, and the key is who's going to be on the Lord's side when it all is said and done. That's the key. Verse 8. They sent therefore and gathered all the lords of the Philistines unto them, and said, what shall we do with the ark of the God of Israel? They want to know, what do we do with this thing? This is the problem. How are we going to handle this particular situation? And then they go on. And they answered, let the ark of the God of Israel be carried about unto Gath. So what are they going to do? They're going to pass the buck. They're going to send it to another town. All right, they're going to send it over to Gath. And they carried the ark of God of Israel about thither. So they picked it up and carried it again. Now they think, well, okay, we're moving them. We got control of them. But you don't. You don't. All right?
Oh, Hughes.
Yes, sir.
You said they picked the ark up and they carried it over to another place.
Yeah.
How come no one is dying right now in that they're moving it and remember other people touched it and they just dropped dead?
Right. Well, that's what I said in the beginning. Remember that Israel has instructions on how to carry the ark. And we will see in a couple of chapters down the road that when Israel doesn't handle the ark correctly, they will die because they have the instructions. These people do not have the instructions. So to whom, if there's no law given, then there cannot be any consequences. So they were not instructed on how to handle the ark. And God is not allowing them to die because they handle it. But they are going to die because they don't recognize the authority when God obviously shows them. Look at what I did to your God Dagon. Look at what I'm doing to your community. And y'all know it's me. All right? But you're still, even though they're handling it and not dying, they're still dying because they're ignoring it. Yes, Wayne?
Yeah, he's letting them move it into all the places where he wants to destroy.
Exactly. Yep. You take it over here, and I'm going to take care of that. Exactly.
Take it there, I'll take care of that.
That's exactly what he's doing.
Y'all are going to bring me where I need to be.
That's it. And
you
God,
make your enemy your footstool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And God, to this, I think God has probably a sense of humor. When we laugh and we giggle, we wonder, okay, why do we feel so good when we're laughing and we see somebody say something or do something and we laugh? We get, we feel good with the laughter, the sense of humor. And God is the God of all things that brings forth the joy and the pleasure. And I believe God has a sense of humor. Oh, take me wherever you want to take me. Go ahead. You want to go? You want me to go to Gath? Go ahead. Pick me up. I won't hurt you. I won't. Zap you. Take me where you want to take me, and watch what happens then. And let's keep going. Look at what happens. All right. So they carried it and they moved it. Look at verse 9. And it was so that after they carried it about, the hand of the Lord was against the city with a very great destruction. So they moved it to this other city. They're moving it now to Gath. And now what do you have? A very great destruction. God will destroy sin. Okay? And he smote the men of the city, both small and great, and they had emerods in their secret parts. Now they got boils and rashes in their secret parts. What's their secret parts? All around their sex organs. All right? So the men and the women, they were not enjoying each other because they were too busy scratching and itching and in pain. And that is not a good thing. That is not a pleasant thing. And once again, I think God has got a sense of humor. He's like, yeah, I'm going to make y'all, this is not going to be a good day. And a lot of these false gods had sexual things around it where they would not tell people that sex was part of what God created for the husband and the wife. They had it as part of their worship ceremonies. Unfortunately, we still see that going on today. We just get a small glimpse of it when we see it in the news where certain people got caught up in all these different, pleasure palaces that people go into, and we hear about it on the news. Every now and then it sneaks through. But what we hear about in the news is just the tip of the iceberg as to what is still going on to this day. They still do these types of things, unfortunately. And God's like, yeah, well, you're going to get all these boils and rashes, all these hemorrhoids, they call it in the King James, all around your private parts. And you are not going to be able to do the activities of your false god. It's going to be too painful. And I think God is up there just giggling and laughing at them. Yeah, go ahead with your crazy self. Do what you want to. Serve your God the way you think you want to serve him, and watch how uncomfortable you're going to be. Let's keep going. Therefore, they sent the ark of God to Ekron. Now they're sending it somewhere else. And it came to pass, as the ark of God came to Ekron, the Ekronites cried out. So they already heard. They're like, look, I see y'all bringing this ark up here. We don't want it. We know that if it comes up here, we're going to be defeated. What is this state? God does not lose. I don't care how it looks. You can like, well, they're gone and dead. No, God can resurrect anything. He can bring anything back to life. The things that we look at and we go, wow, I just think this is a bad, I don't think it's ever going to change. God can do this. And what is God doing? Like Wayne said, God is allowing the victory to happen every time they move into a new city. Who's getting the victory? The God of the Israelites is getting the victory. So Israel is winning a war because of what God is doing, and they don't even know. They're at home, once again, just thinking how bad things went. And we could be in a situation in our mind thinking how bad things went when God is behind the scenes winning the war for us. That's why we walk by faith, not by sight. We call those things that be not as though they were.
Amen.
That's how we have to try to learn to live. But unfortunately, that's not something that we do easily. We see the problem and we're like, oh, that's what's going on. That's the issue. And we don't see God behind the scenes fixing it, making it better. All right?
This reminds me of Pharaoh and Moses.
Yes, it does. Yep. Yep. God's fighting the battle. When every time Pharaoh tried to make it harder. All that happened was it got harder actually for Pharaoh.
Right.
You fight God's people, and you're actually fighting yourself. When you fight God, all you're doing is beating yourself up. You try, I'm going to hit God. No, you're going to hit yourself, unfortunately. All right? Let's read verse 10 here. Therefore, they sent the ark of God to Ekron. And it came to pass, as the ark of God came to Ekron, that the Ekronites cried out, saying, they have brought about the ark of the Lord, of the God of Israel, to us, to slay us and our people. Now, Ekron, those people there, they're putting two and two together. They're bringing this ark in here, and all it's going to do is slay us. We're going to die. They have already now seen the evidence. And the Lord knows. Have we not seen the evidence? They take God out the schools, and look at how the schools are. Look at all the mass shootings. Look at all the different things. You took God out, and what happens?
It stepped in.
It just got destroyed. Right? And so we can say that about a lot of things. People, you take God out of our culture. You take God, and what do you got? You got all kinds of people doing all kinds of things, taking, calling their sin as Sodom and hiding it not. Have no embarrassment, no shame about their doing wrong. I'm going to do wrong, and I'm going to be proud about it. I'm okay lying. I'm okay stealing. I'm okay taking from the innocent. I don't mind taking advantage of the fatherless, the widows. I don't mind taking advantage of the orphans. I don't mind doing whatever I can do to make sure I'm doing better than these people because I'm bigger and badder than them. Well, guess what? God is bigger and badder than you. And we have to always remember that. And so, but at least these people from Ekron, they're like, look, we're going to die if this ark comes in our town. I know that. I can see that. They know God is. They knew God. They know God as God, and still refuse to worship Him. A lot of people are like that. Verse 11. So they sent and gathered together all the lords of Philistines and said, send away the ark of God of Israel and let it go again to its own place. Where they're going to send it? They're going to send it back. So Israel has no idea. They're in their land crying because they've lost the ark of God and have no idea that the ark of God is coming back. And who's bringing it back? God's bringing it back Himself. But as he's bringing it back, he's all these people that are allowing it to be in their towns and in their cities. They are getting beat up. They're getting destroyed. They're getting plagues. Why? Israel is fighting the enemy. And now, these people cannot say that they don't know the power of God. They do know the power of God, but they still refuse to serve Him. I'd rather send them away instead of saying, well, since He's coming here, maybe we should worship Him. Maybe we should serve this God. Nope, they don't say that. They want to get rid of it. And it won't hurt me if you get rid of it. Well, no, you're still going to have to deal with it. It's like God said, you deal with me now or you deal with me later. You may get by, but you will never get away. And you always got to keep that in mind. And so they said, we want to send it to its own place, that it slay us not for our and our people. For there was a deadly destruction throughout all the city. The hand of God was very heavy there. What does deadly destruction mean? People are dying.
Dying.
Why? Because the wages of sin is what?
Sin is death.
Wages of sin is death. And so therefore, when you refuse to acknowledge the authority of God that's very present in your face, you're seeing it, and you still say, get rid of it. I don't want God in front of me. I don't want Him in my town. I don't want Him in my city. I don't want Him in my culture. And God allows the destruction to continue. You had the opportunity to acknowledge God as being all-powerful, anointed God of God. But instead of acknowledging it, as you already know, as you see, we can't win this. All we can do is get rid of it. And God's saying, okay, and you're going to have a very heavy destruction. All right? So it was very heavy there. Our last verse. And the men that died not were smitten with the hemorrhoids, and the cry of the city went up to heaven. They're crying because of what? Pain. They're crying because of discomfort. They're crying because of suffering. But they're not crying to God for deliverance, for relationships. And that's what a lot of people have. When problems come, they cry to heaven. They cry to God. But they're not crying to God to get to know him. They're crying to God I want to find a way to get rid of the pain. I want to find a way to get rid of the suffering. I want to find a way to get rid of the discomfort. But what about trying to find a way to get to know God? And somebody once said, well, why does God allow all this bad stuff to happen? Well, the bad stuff is happening because we have sinned. And the key is not why does God allow all this bad stuff to happen? Why does God allow any good to happen? That's the question. That's what we should be saying. The fact that we see any good is because of the goodness, the mercy, the justice of God. All have sinned and come short of the glory of God. And so therefore all should suffer destruction. But not everybody does. God shows mercy, and God is long suffering. He will allow you and give you time to get your act together to recognize, I think I need to start serving God. Unfortunately, these people from these towns here in chapter 5, they're not serving God. They're trying to get God out of their culture. I don't want God around me. Because it makes me feel bad. It makes me get to a point where I see destruction and I see discomfort. When what God is trying to show you is, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of gods, Lord of lords, King of kings. I have more authority and more power than your false gods. But they don't want to do that because they enjoy the pleasures of sin. They prefer to walk in darkness than to walk in light. They don't want to give up their pleasures that they have developed and their way of life. They don't want to change their culture. So all they want to do is move God around. Yes, sir.
And that's the way we are today.
Yes, sir.
Unfortunately, we want it our way. We think we're like Burger King. We can have it our way. Mm-hmm. But it's God's way. It's not our way.
Exactly.
It's God's will. It's God's mercy. It's God's grace. And we need to acknowledge his grace and ask him to forgive us. But we love that sin more than we love God, and we continue it.
That's good. Everybody wants to do what's right in their own eyes, rather than finding out what does the God of all creation say is right. That's where true righteousness is. And we thank God because God, for those that come to God, they then have the ability to take on the righteousness of God. Not because we've done it right, but because we have been given the gift of righteousness. And God will impute to us, infuse us, like a blood transfusion, infuse us with his righteousness if we acknowledge him as being the Lord of lords, God of gods, King of kings. If we acknowledge him that way, then and admit that we are a sinner, come to him, he saves us. These people here in chapter 5, they see God as who he is, but they're not coming to God. They're running away and chasing God out of the town. And that's the mindset, unfortunately, that we see with a lot of people. All right, this was very short, only 12 verses in this particular chapter. So we're going to give you some time back. Any comments or questions on what we've discussed today? Anyone have anything else they want to add?